One. And yes, recording. Off to a rocky start. Episode 781, I think, Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. And as I was just telling you, there's really no flow, or there is flow. There's no rhyme or reason to this podcast. It's just shooting this shit, and you
So there's only flow, nothing
only
else.
flow. It is nothing but flow. It is the elemental distillation of flow. But hey, man, for myself and for all the audience members, please introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Pasquale Scopelliti. It's this wonderful Italian name, Pasquale Scopelliti, so I go by Pat. Okay. All right. It's easy for everybody to say. I don't know if you can see him in the corner back there. That's my grandfather. I get my name from him. It's a bust of my grandfather that my mother created. I don't really know where you come from in the whole political spectrum. I think we got introduced by a mutual contact at Twitter, who I would imagine we kind of share political, but I have no idea. I don't really know anything about you yet. I've got my book here, so can you read it?
The America title? First, the Mega Manifesto.
So you kind of get my leaning.
No, I'm fine. I'm more of a conservative guy.
But whatever.
It doesn't matter. Every week I have on one of my best friends who is the complete opposite of me. I don't give a shit whether we're the same or different. I don't give a shit, man.
Okay.
So, just jumping into it then. For me, it seems like the biggest thing is 2022 seems to be what's the right word? Almost like a canary. And it's going to be, I mean, I personally think the 2020 election was stolen. I do think that it was a coordinated effort. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
Now there's two of us.
Okay, but I always entertain that I could be wrong. It could be my own confirmation bias.
Sure could.
And then what it comes down to is if it was stolen, because we are the most powerful nation in the world, my logic is if it was stolen, it was stolen by us. Just like if JFK was assassinated by a nation state, it was us. And then what the implications of a stolen election means is, although we've been doing it for decades around the world, doing it here, does it mean that this was the first time it happened, or does it mean that there have been nonstop stolen elections since 1963? This is the first one that really peeled the veil back, in the same way that I don't think collusion between big pharma and the media is novel to COVID. I think COVID exposed it, right?
That's well put.
I think COVID exposed it. We can now look back and look at Oxycontin. We can look at doctors smoking cigarettes. We go, oh, it's not new. It's when you catch someone cheating on you. It wasn't the first time you go, oh, this has been going. So the reason I'm saying all that is so there are a lot of implications to whether or not it was stolen. If it was stolen, it probably wasn't the first stolen one. If it was the first stolen one, and here's the purpose of everything I'm saying, you can really only use that card once, right? You can really, right after JFK was assassinated, immediately they started putting, like, presidents were only riding in like hard top limousines. There was no more open. Right after 9/11, there's going to be another terrorist attack. It's not going to be hijacking planes. All the doors to the cockpit are now steel. That you now got to go through the metal detector. You can't, there's all these tests. So when you come for the king, you best not miss. So once you use one avenue, you really can't use that avenue again. So the point of that whole rant was,
great rant.
Thank you. 2022 really holds a lot of intrigue to me, because COVID's dead. They can't use that whole thing again. There's so many poll watchers. There are so many people with eyes on this now. There are so many election laws that have been changed. They might have gotten away with 2020. They might never. The reality is they'll probably never be reprimanded. The bad guys got away. But what do you think is going to happen in 2022? Are we going to see fair elections?
I'm kind of like, I've got all kinds of competing emotions right now. So it's like,
who cares?
In my heart because of what you said. It's like, you're filling my heart with hope. Maybe it could only be used once. I never had that thought before right this moment.
Yeah.
Maybe that, and your historical background is flawless. I mean, spot on history. And I'm going, wow, hope. That's on the one hand. Now we got the other hand. I'm a poll analyst. And when I say poll, I don't mean like the voting booth polls. I mean like opinion polls, opinion polling. I don't know if you know anything at all about my political background. Back in 2016, I got involved with the Trump campaign as a volunteer analyst. I worked together with General Mike Flynn. He and I became colleagues. Yes. And he wrote the foreword to this book. And he and I are friends. We had a great conversation over the weekend in which he said, not once, but twice, Happy Easter to me. Nice. He's really big on Easter. It's a big thing for him. Anyway.
Hell yeah.
So one of the things I sent in probably somewhere between 400 and 450 analyses to the campaign during the peak of the election season, and General Flynn read every single one of them and forwarded those that he stood behind. And the most exciting work that we did together was create a new method of analyzing polling data. So when I tell you I'm really into polling data, I really am. Sure. I don't bring the statistical orientation that many of the others out there that I'm in such awe of them. And I have immense respect and some jealousy because I don't have their statistical mathematical background, which I would love, but I don't. Anyway, but what I did was I brought well over 30 years of technical analysis, which comes from stocks and commodities. And I applied it to polling data. And by way of all the research and everybody I've been able to speak to so far, Tommy, I'm the first person to ever do that.
Okay.
Nobody ever did that before. And we put together these just wonderful charts and diagrams. And General Flynn gives that work credit in being significantly beneficial to the campaign in coming down to the win. Also, I will brag further that I did make the call 3 weeks. And in a presidential election, 21 days, 3 weeks is like, 2 deserts and a continent in between here and there, I mean, it's just forever. And I called it without the slightest bit of hesitation. And not just because I wanted it to happen, which I did, but I was always very clear about my confirmation bias, but because of the data and my analysis of the data drove me to that conclusion without the slightest hesitation. All right, so all of that rant and background to come back up to why I'm so discouraged, even at the very same moment I'm encouraged by what you just said. And that's this. I saw in 2020, the absolute implosion. I thought I'd seen it previously, but no. The entire political polling apparatus went so far underground as to become a force for evil and not for good, a force for disinformation and not information, a source to misguide as opposed to guide and lead us. It became, and I know this term is so overused, I almost hate saying it, but political polling became weaponized, and weaponized to the degree like there's nothing left. The only thing there is the poll as a weapon. There's no information gathering. There's no actual opinion research going on. It's all done to purpose, by agenda, by the way you ask the questions, by the sample size, by who you are sampling, the selection, and, the leading from one question to the next question to the question that follows, the way you set up, the mind's expectation of what's going to come and the answers that are going to be the ones that the other person wants to hear as opposed to what you actually feel here. I mean, all of it. On down the line. And I spent during 2020 countless analyses. I wasn't connected to the campaign anymore in 2020. By then I had a Twitter following At one point, Sidney Powell retweeted almost an entire thread of mine that I did on General Flynn. And that got me from about 15 up to a little bit over 30,000 followers. Just her doing that the one time, boom, exploded me. Then when they took her off and, with the Great Purge and everything, I'm back down now to about 17,000, which I guess in today's world is kind of large-ish for somebody on our side of things. But anyway, so it was there. So I took all of my analytical work and I ported it over to Twitter, and I became a thread writer. So as opposed to analyses I sent to the campaign, posted all this stuff in public at Twitter, and I analyzed poll after poll after poll, and I pulled them all apart, and I kept looking to see if anybody would debate me. I never got a single debate, not one. Nobody. Now, I'm not a big name, so the big names are not going to come and argue with me. But even still, nobody ever disputed it. So that by the time we lost on the night of 3 November, and I'm watching Fox, and by the way, 3 November is seared in my mind as the last time I ever watched news on TV. I've not watched any news on TV from then till now. And I don't know if ever I'm going to do it again.
I vividly remember I was staying up watching I'd watched the Joe Rogan live stream with Tim Dillon and Kyle Kuklinski, and I remember I was playing Sniper Elite 4 on my Xbox, and I was just staying up. But I've watched I've always loved watching, just staying up for elections, even for ones I didn't agree with. Like I just want to see it's crazy. I just want to see it, right? It's my
We've been a politically addicted family for decades. Yeah. And up until 2016, we would scream and yell at the TV just for the sheer joy and fun of it. That's our kind of fun around here. Never got involved. Was never connected in any way, shape, or form. So 2016 was my first participation. Then in 2020, I'm watching this and I'm seeing the election stolen before my very eyes. And I've been, I was deeply into all the data and whatnot. And I'm going, yeah, right.
Well, that's what I mean. And I always say this just to show people that although I have cognitive confirmation bias, I also kind of, in 2008, I mean, I was 18 and stupid. I voted for Obama. In 2012, I was pre-med in college. I didn't want Obamacare, so I voted for Romney. 2016, I was really depressed. I had lost a brother to suicide 2 years prior. And I was like, oh, I think everyone really does need free mental health care. So I voted for Bernie in the primaries. I didn't even vote in the general election. My life was so fucked up. So I didn't even vote, but my logic was I'd always just been, well, in 2008, I wanted to see stem cell research go through. So Obama. 2012, I didn't want to see Obamacare. So I voted for Romney. Got into medical school, decided not to go, lost a brother to suicide, and was like, okay. So I voted for Bernie in the prime. Didn't vote in the general. My life was just so upside down.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't even a fan of Trump. I really, it's not that I wasn't a fan. I just wasn't paying. My life was upside down. And in 2020, I voted for Trump. So I have been all over the spectrum. So I like to think that I have a pliable mind. But I remember watching Obama get inaugurated. I remember being little and watching the Hanging Chads thing with George Bush. So the point is I was just watching, and I remember staying up and seeing Trump win in 2016. And again, I didn't give a shit. So this wasn't I wasn't MAGA. I was just watching and I was like, oh shit, he's winning. Whatever. But 2020 watching, and I remember seeing it and I was like, oh, he didn't blow it out of the water, but I was like, seems like he's squeaking by. Seems like he's getting it. And it was 3 a.m. and I was like,
numbers start changing.
And I was like, seems like he's got it. And then I remember seeing, I forget what stream I was watching, but they're like, they're sending home all the vote counters. And I think that was the first night I'd ever watched Steven Crowder. And I was just and they were like, that's kind of weird. They're shutting it all down for COVID. But they're like, well, this one, it's technically over. It's numerically over. And I was staying up and I was like, well, that is weird, but whatever. And then I still have the screenshots on my phone where I was screenshotting CNN's electoral college map, and one by one, it was wait, how are these states now they're going backwards? And I was like, how are they all freezing? And I was like, the ones that are pausing, I was like, those are all the swing states. And it was 4 a.m, 5 a.m, and I kept refreshing, and I was like, oh my God. And as a student of history, I was like, this is we're seeing the other end of the barrel of the CIA right now.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
We've been looking down the trigger for the last 7 decades, and now we're seeing the 12 gauge at our face. And I went, oh my God. And I woke up the next morning, they had all paused, and I was like, I already know what was going to happen. And I was like, it's every hour they found another ballot or a pallet of ballots. And I was like, yeah, this is a coup. And
absolutely.
But my hope is it's not that you can only steal an election once. You can always steal an election. But the mode in which you steal it, I think 2020 was the use.
By the way, you blundered with your CIA connection. You blundered into color revolutions. Yes.
Yeah.
You know that term?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what we just, we did that to ourselves. So your point about, looking at, into the barrel this time instead of pulling the trigger.
We've normally been pointing it at South American nations, European nations, removing communists. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, all the counting stops in the middle of the night and the cameras go out and all the news organizations are in lockstep. Incredible. You go, there's almost a beauty to it. It's evil.
But it's so well done.
Yeah, I know. You have to almost have to respect it. You go.
Yeah. And see, that's where I've become discouraged again, Tommy, because when I look at political polling in the tank, completely gone as anything other than a weapon. Yeah. When I look at the media with not even the slightest curtain of integrity in the information. I mean, in a normal, whatever that is, but in a normal election cycle, Hunter Biden would have collapsed Joe Biden. Joe Biden would have never made it, on his own. But, so he gets the nomination. Now you got this stuff with Hunter Biden comes out during the campaign. He would be gone. Completely gone, but no impact whatsoever. So you got the New York Times, you got the Washington Post, the usual suspects all involved, but they're involved in a different way this time, Tommy, than anything I ever saw. Now, I was born in 1960, the year that Kennedy stole the election from Nixon, right? So I don't remember it well, but I do know the name Sam Giancana, and I do know that the Illinois vote was completely purloined. And if it weren't for that, it would have been President Nixon instead of President Kennedy. Now, granted, the sweat on his lip in the first televised debates, not good, but not enough to turn the election. No way. So they stole that election. I won't address how many from then till now. I have no idea, but I know from 1960 to 2020, we've got 2. So you look at the media's behavior. Now, it's worse. You look at the state legislatures. You look at the state Supreme Courts. You look at the federal Supreme Court, in DC. And every aspect of that relative to the vote count, all completely corrupt. Yeah. Even, the Trump appointees to the Supreme Court, those Trump appointees gave him no benefit whatsoever. And when I say him, I really mean us, and I really mean the American vote. I would feel the same way if they were stealing it from Biden and throwing it to Trump. I would want the Supreme Court to get in there and give it back to Biden if Biden was actually the winner. So it's not because I'm for Trump I'm saying this. I'm telling you that the Trump appointees that are supposed to be conservatives, they wouldn't touch this. And there's no question in my mind or heart that John Roberts is the one telling them, look, there's lots you can do. You can't do this. Yeah. So you got the Supreme Court. You've got 2 impeachments through the Congress, neither one that was even a serious thing, but you got that. Go all the way back to the Russia hoax and the FARA court back in 2016, the whole General Flynn thing with the FARA court and whatnot. I don't know how much you followed all of that or, the whole Russia hoax. And then the, big tall guy with the investigation. Mueller. Thank you. Needed the help there. Robert Mueller, that entire structure, it makes the word serpentine seem like a simple term. Yeah. You got this complex web going everywhere.
Labyrinth.
Yeah, labyrinth, exactly. And I don't know that it can get pulled apart. So your point which I think is a fantastic point. They really are going to have a much harder time here in 2022. And then again, especially, I hope, in 2024, doing it the same way. But there are so many ways they can bob and weave. There are so many tools that they've unearthed, and they're so shameless now that I'm not even making the slightest call for what's going to happen. Everybody's saying it's going back Republican here in 22. I'm going, okay, maybe, but I don't know. I'm not making any call at all.
Yeah, that's the thing, was like with 2020, like in 2008, like I wanted Obama to win and he did. In 2012, I wanted Romney to win and he didn't. And no part of me thought it was stolen. I was just like, he lost.
No, he gave it away. It wasn't stolen.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I remember the moment he gave it away.
And for me, with 2020, it's not that. I think a large criticism, and it's a fair criticism, is that like, oh, you just didn't. It the same way that no one on the left thought Hillary could possibly lose, and it's like, well, you're living in your own bubble.
Yeah,
I'm very aware that yes, it can look like, oh, there's Trump. It was stolen because there's no way he could lose. No. I get it. I get people can absolutely hate the motherfucker. Like I understand that. I understand that if I'm only looking at pro-Trump blogs, I'm going to live in a bubble. I get that. I completely get. There are upsets all the time. There are upsets in sports. There are upsets in everything, right? So I get that. To me, it's not that at all. It's what I saw with my own eyes. It paused and insert any two candidates. I don't care. Insert Bush v. Gore. Insert Obama v. McCain. It doesn't matter. What happened is it all paused and the swing states went backwards. And then the subsequent influx of votes were like 99.9995%. And it just, so it's not that I don't think he could have lost. Sure. A lot of people are, you're allowed to not vote for someone. You're allowed to vote against someone. You're allowed to do that. It's not, you're allowed to just say, I hate this guy. So based on that, and based on historical patterns, you would imagine it would move back towards red in 2022, just because it always seems to do that.
Yeah.
And I would imagine logically, you look at inflation and people are going to be angry. I guess my positivity or optimism comes from, yes, although it's a labyrinthian complex of they can do anything. They can fuck you 6 ways from Sunday.
Yeah.
There's also not only did they steal the election and you can't really do that again, but I mean, now the media as a whole has kind of lost all credibility with COVID. It came from a lab. If you said it came from a lab, you're out of here. You're banned. If you said it's, if you said this, that, or the other thing, you're banned.
Yeah. And I don't watch Fox anymore.
No, but
we've lost the right-wing media.
That's what I mean. Across the board, you're having people go, ivermectin's horse paste. They're like, oh, well, I guess it kind of. I mean, within 1 week, they went from there are no U.S. biolabs in Ukraine. That's a conspiracy theory. Within like 4 days, it was like there are U.S. labs in Ukraine. Here's why that's a good thing. And it's like, dude, like the time between calling things a far right conspiracy and then becoming a fact went from like 5 years to 5 months to 5 days. So again, left and right, and with censorship on Facebook, on Twitter, I'm permanently banned from YouTube.
Can't even talk about that.
Yeah. But that's what I mean is, so across the board, you're also having the rejection of their ability to peddle a narrative. So it's not just stealing the election, it's the many ways in which that labyrinth works. It seems like they're burning a lot of their weapons. So you're now coming down to like, how are they gonna steal it? How can you?
I got a couple more bad news bombs to hit you with.
Sure.
It's one thing to burn through a weapon, and it's another thing to collect ripe fruit.
Yeah.
It could well be that by the time we got to 2020, the structures, the infrastructure of their destruction of our democracy based on First Amendment, free speech rights, and voting freedom had become so mature that it was easy for them to do. I'll give you an example.
That's a good point.
What do they call them in all the universities? They've got these Chinese funded departments. There's a
Confucian Institutes.
Thank you. Second time today you've done that for me. I love you, but I hate that. Anyway, these Confucian Institutes, right? How long have they been pouring millions upon uncountable millions of dollars into our education system so that all the people being graduated have been, to as close a degree as possible, programmed to be favorable to Chinese communism, socialism, radical left-wing agenda, anti-Americanism. I mean, take it on down the line. We've got 3 or 4 generations of education that has fallen under that, with a cumulative impact and a greater and greater reach into the entire infrastructure. I say entire infrastructure. What are we talking about there? Well, we're talking about the staffs of the universities. We're talking about all the professors, all of the administration, but way beyond that, go to the think tanks, go to any think tank, Heritage or anybody else. It's purportedly going to have the ones on the conservative side. They're filled with people who got their PhDs and their master's degrees in international studies from these exact same institutions. So it spreads throughout the whole society. You take a look at something like the New York Times or the Washington Post again. They used to have these extraordinary staffs. They all leaned left. They were all, Democrats in their hearts, or at least the vast majority. But they had this thing of objectivity that they had to either at least fake, or better yet, strive toward. Journalistic integrity used to be something. How do we even get to use those 2 words together in one sentence anymore? Journalistic integrity, they're now ranked with used car salespeople by way of credibility. So if you look at all these various aspects, let me throw one more in. By the way, you were mentioning about your flexibility and openness of mind. When I was in college, now this is all the way back in the 1980s. When I was in college, I was absolutely a socialist. I wasn't a communist, but I never saw a pretty girl go into the Communist Party meeting. Had I would probably have been a communist. But I mean, so I read the Communist Manifesto my freshman year in college, no, sophomore year in college. And I'm like, yes, I have total agreement, except for 2 points. Wipe out the family and use violence to tear down every institution in society. And I'm going, no, I lean these guys' ways, but that's too far. We're not going to tear down the family. We're not going to use violence to wipe out every institution in the society so that, the proletariat of the working class can take over. I didn't go that far. I couldn't go that far. Now, fast forward, summer of 2020, what do we see? We see violence in the streets over an election in a manner I don't believe we've ever seen before. Now, maybe you're going to say correlation as opposed to causation, but come on. All of the violence in the streets in the summer of 2020, that was programmed. That was purchased and paid for. That was structurally infused into our society.
That wasn't organic. That, again, no. That was we were seeing the other end of the CIA.
That's it. So all of these things, Tommy, they break my heart.
That's a great point, man. It might not be that they've burned these uses. It might just be like, no, the machine's finally online. Like
that's actual real fear.
Yeah,
and it petrifies me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got, in a negative way, chills running up and down my arms right now because I hate this so much.
Yeah.
No, and I hate being the guy telling you this. I don't want to be the guy telling you this.
No, it does seem that way, but there's also.
But I want to be wrong.
Yeah.
In every which way. I wish I was wrong about all my facts. I know I'm not, but I wish I was, and I wish I was wrong about all of my interpretations. And I think that what I really want, and I got to have you hear me say this, I want, and I kind of think I do. I want to agree with you. And I kind of think I do, because you cannot push an entire society that far, that fast, in spite of going back these generations through the upper educational system. That doesn't change the beating heart of America herself. Yeah. There is a beating heart of America. We awakened in 2016 in the MAGA movement. And although there have been all kinds of self-inflicted wounds on our side and continue to be, really, it's not time to cry in our soup. It's really not. It's time to, pour some milk on the cereal and have breakfast again.
Yeah. But I mean, but you are seeing a lot of people who are, it's moving from, there's kind of two forms of it. One, you kind of have these luxury issues, gay marriage, abortion, should weed be legal? Those are all things that everyone can argue about when the wallet is still fat and everything else is fine. Those are things we can all scream about when you can then go home and go play Xbox or whatever. In that way, though, those issues don't matter when it comes down to vaccine mandates. Those issues don't matter when there's 8% inflation. All of a sudden, you're seeing this very real, it's coming home and it's touching you.
Yeah.
Instead of going, well, I'm a guy, I don't need an abortion. All of a sudden you go, hey man, it costs more to, the chicken at Walmart costs. You go, oh, fuck. It doesn't matter what your opinion is on it. You can be apolitical. Hey, your bananas cost more. So on that sense, we now have issues coming home, and it's not just, well, if you want the vaccine, you can get it. Now it's like, whoa. I work at Radio Shack. Why do I have to get this experimental thing? You're now having people getting banned from, you're having people like me getting banned from YouTube. And you're going like, wait, what? So you have these, on one hand, you have issues coming home and touching you. All right. On the other, and then on another aspect of this, another sort of symptom is you have the people share images or change their profile picture on social media or put up a bumper sticker, to now you're actually seeing movement. You're seeing people leave New York and go to Florida. You're seeing people leave California and go to Texas. You're seeing the manifestation of people. It's no longer just, I hate this place. Well, why don't you move? Well, I got a good job. I got, we kind of wear it on our sleeve, and then it doesn't really matter. In the same way that I'll scream about abortion and then it's okay, whatever. But when inflation hits, and at the same time, you now have people leaving Los Angeles. They're going, you can't do it anymore. San Francisco going, I cannot be a part of this anymore.
Yes.
It's the cracks are too important and too large to ignore anymore. And that is, you can kind of fuck around at the edges. You can kind of, if you're working at some massive corporation and maybe you embezzle $5 once a week or something, no one's going to notice. And you can get away. And even if they do notice, they're probably going, whatever. The guy brings in $50,000 of business a year. Let him take the pencil or the stapler. When you start taking too much,
right,
is when people notice. No one cares if you use a counterfeit 20, but if you're Bernie Madoff and you start taking from the wrong people, you end up dead. So in that sense, I think you can fuck around the edges so long as the middle class is strong and you have money. You can run up the defense contracting bills. You can do that and do the other thing. No one cares because you can
$1,000 toilet seats.
but now it's coming home. Now it's real. And I guess that's where my hope. And not only that, we also are in this absurd time of a technological parallel where it's not just you get shut out from the media. Now you can just go, all right, I'm going to make my own podcast. Now you have Rogan who just goes, I don't need to be here anymore. I'll leave. Now you just have, Elon just going,
hell with Tom Brokaw. I'll be Tom Brokaw.
But that's what I mean is you have guys like me.
Hi, Tom.
Yeah. Well, I'm Tom. Now you have guys like me that can sit down and I can contact Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Robert Malone. I can interview these people. And it's like, there's this whole parallel thing forming now. I mean, and even with cryptocurrency, now people are just, well, I don't need the US dollar. There's this weird, so it's the issues are now home, inflation. People are now physically moving their lifestyles from California and New York to Florida and Texas. And then number 3, there's a genuine way to fight back, and not in the way of taking up arms, but in the way of, I can get my own camera, my own microphone. You can ban me from YouTube. I'll go to Rumble. whatever. I'll use my own.
So you actually have more voice, not less.
So that's what I mean, is like there are all these weird ways in which their machine may have reached maturity, but there's this whole other thing that's also kind of reaching.
It's a brilliant point you're making, man.
So that's just my optimism.
Wow, your optimism has a lot of good, solid foundation, which I need. So another point you made earlier today about after 9/11, you know, they're still going to do terrorism, but they're not stealing planes and flying them into skyscrapers.
That's done.
Yes, that's a brilliant point. Now, I've thought about that point. You know, a little bit older than you, 9/11 really did change my life. It really, really did. Yeah. And I remember that moment, and I've always had my own way of interpreting it, and I'm going to share that in a second, but I'm going to build on that with what you just said. And that's this. I turned to Kate. Kate's my wife. She pulls me out of my office. I've been working out of my own home since 1987. So I tell everybody I was pre-COVIDed by 30 years. Yeah. So anyway, she pulls me out of my office to come down and watch towers on that morning.
Yeah.
And we're watching this happen. And I see the 2 towers go down. And I remember turning to Kate and I say, honey, they got more than they bargained for. They are going to suffer now. Having taken down these 2 buildings in Manhattan, the full weight and force of not only America, but America's entire global reach is going to come down on these people now in ways they cannot even think or imagine. When they've been poking us up until now, they've been poking us in the shoulder. You don't want to poke the giant in the eye. You don't want to do that. And I told her that they would suffer and that the power of government against terrorism just shifted. I saw that in the very moment that it occurred, and I was right about that. But what you've just added is a whole layer on top of that. So not only are they not going to fly planes into towers again, there comes a moment when your success has brought attention to you, and that changes the entire nature of the playing field. So if we stick with my depressing, the machine is now online and, it's generating its results. If we look at that one more time through your more optimistic eyes, what I can see is that it may be that the machine has come online, but it's come online for the previous condition.
Yeah.
It's not online for today's condition. And no system ever does do that. All systems adapt to what just happened. They don't know what's they don't even know what's going on right now or happening. They're adapting to what just happened or what happened previously. And especially when you take a look and, so I'm reading, as I told you, Communist Manifesto, it's like 1981. I'm reading it. It was published in, 1848 or 44, whatever year it was. And, I'm seeing now I'm rereading it and it's 2020 and, or 2018 is when I was rereading it again, really intensely. I've seen 160 years worth of development. It's scary as hell to me, right?
Yeah.
But it's development for what they've known all along. It's not development for today. So nothing in the Communist Manifesto prepares anybody on their side for what you and I are doing right this very minute.
Yeah. I point to this example a lot of the F-117 Nighthawk, the first stealth fighter. And how
do you not love those things?
They're incredible. But it's
so awesome.
Its power was so unique and game changing that they wanted to only use it for incredibly important missions. And under Reagan, Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger, under that Defense Department, they wanted to use the F-117 to go take out Gaddafi, and it was initially green lit. And then Weinberger came down and said, no, we're not using it. And they were like, well, why not? And they were like, as much as we want Gaddafi gone, we don't want the Soviets to know that we have the F-117, because half its power comes from the fact that you don't know about it. Because as soon as you know about a weapon, right, you can start reacting to the weapon. Half the power of a weapon comes from the fact that you don't know what to prepare against, right? So they're like, we're going to use these other planes that they're quick, whatever. And they're like, well, if we don't hit Gaddafi, like he's going to get away and then he's going to hide. And sure enough, the attack failed and Gaddafi did go into hiding.
Far better that occurred than the other route.
But they would rather have this one third world dictator get away. Sure, that kind of embarrassed us, but we'd rather the bigger monster, the Soviets, not know we have the
absolutely right. Do
you
know the story?
But hold on. So because the Soviets were continuing to, much like the space race where we kind of bankrupted then trying to get to the moon, they didn't know we had stealth. So they were dumping all of their money into just continuing to build surface to air missiles and radars, because that's how they successfully took down the U-2 with Gary Powers. So we were like, hey,
I didn't know.
Yeah. And then they, at the SR-71, they could still see it. It just went really fast. They were building bigger and faster missiles. And we were like, hey, let them keep thinking that's where we're going. Because logically, you go, the U-2 goes this high and this fast. The SR-71 goes higher and faster. So the Soviets are going, we just got to start calibrating for height and speed. They don't know about the F-117, this big clunky piece of shit that doesn't even go supersonic. It looks like a cardboard cutout. They don't know about it. They're dumping all their money into this. This is a decades-long Cold War. Don't let them know about stealth. And they didn't. And then once they did, everyone starts developing stealth. And now the arms race continues, and you got to create the next gen, right?
Yeah.
So my logic is like, every time you use a weapon,
yeah, you're absolutely
you've lost 50% of its lethality right there.
I'm feeling, if not 100%, at least 70% better now than I was before we started this conversation.
Well, it might all just be my own delusion to try to be optimistic.
Well, then you got two people in your delusion now.
Hell yeah, man. It's fun. But yeah, sorry. So,
I was going to ask you, do you know the story behind the Hunt for Red October? Are you familiar with the Hunt for Red October?
Yeah.
You know that was an actual Triton submarine that really did defect, that really did come streaming into, the Delaware River up there in Connecticut, exactly like at the end of the movie. And that was, at the time, $1 trillion machine.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the real thing. It's that we had the machine intact.
Yeah.
So we knew every aspect of their technology, and the people, on the drawing boards over in Moscow and whatnot, they're going, that's a decade or more. It's more than just the money. It's the time, it's the expertise, it's the mastery. So somebody spends 30 years developing their PhD level work and on and on and on that goes into some little tiny part of the Triton submarine. Well, that 30 years now is accessible to a 30-year-old in Annapolis.
Yeah, it's gone now.
Yeah. And so I'm getting excited now.
Yeah. So, but that's what I mean is, so when they do a move like taking the 2020 election, it's like, okay, that's using the F-117. Brilliant. No one saw it coming. You got it.
Okay.
But now you just burned your ace, and that's your ace killed. But now what do you have? You can only do a trick play in the NFL. You can only do a trick play once, and then it's not a trick anymore. It's done.
Again, I've got another connection for you because I got involved and, I was doing emails back and forth between me and General Flynn and the campaign. I'm obviously on every email list, the Republican Party has, right? So I get between 30 and 50 emails a day from this, that, or the other about President Trump. Probably it's even more, I just delete them all, but every once in a while there's something I take a look at. At any rate, but I've noticed that as the months have turned now into almost a couple of years of the Biden administration, Trump's, and I was reading about this as well, Trump's email-based, which is an old technology, his email-based fundraising has gone beyond anything that has ever existed in American political history before. He has completely stolen the real power and heft from the billionaires who can, give these huge chunks of money, but they expect all this stuff in return for the $1 and the $5 and the $10 contributors. So he's democratized. Everybody did. Obama was really good at this. So it's a long trend. I don't want to give Trump all the credit, but I'm not trying to pile on credit on Trump. However, he is taking it places it's never been taken to before. And they are making money here before the midterms. And they're building their war chest for 24, like has never been done before. And I think that this is a huge I mean, I feel like I can look at that now through your perspective that I couldn't before this conversation, because I've been wondering. I mean, okay, I know he likes making money. I know he's having fun with the emails, and he doesn't have a nation to run. So what the hell else is he going to do with his time and effort and ego and all, right? And so he's doing, but I know there's got to be something else. And I think that he, in his strategic vision, and by the way, I think he's a strategic genius. I really, really believe that. And I have a little bit closer access than most upon which to base that. But at any rate, I'm going, this has a strategic feeling to it. It doesn't just feel tactical. Like now, I used to get 5 or 10. Now I get 50 or 70 emails a day. Like, why? And I'm going, there's something going on. I think that they've made the same analysis as you, that you can't throw the election to Biden and Harris a second time in 24 the way you did in 20. Yeah. And, let's say that Biden is gone by then. He's senile, we section 25 him or whatever, 25th Amendment. So, it's Harris and whomever. You cannot push those same people down America's throat the way you'd pushed Biden and Harris down in 20. I think your point is really, it's gaining resonance in my soul and in my mind.
It's no one ever has complete like top down. Every time anyone's ever thought that they had the game figured out and it was over, it's never worked. I mean, what was in the early 1900s when all those science? There's some quote, I forget who it's from. I want to say it's like Max Planck. It might be someone else. But they said science is pretty much over. We've pretty much discovered anything.
Lord, now I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like now
it's the guy with the temperature.
Planck?
Not Fahrenheit. The other guy. Not Planck. It wasn't Planck.
Kelvin.
That's it.
It's like we've basically figured out everything.
Yeah,
now we just have to find.
Now everything else is going to be like refining our calculations.
Yeah.
And we're on the verge of the greatest scientific discovery to compare against the whole rest of history before.
Yeah, no, and it's a bunch of jackasses in top hats, taking horse and buggies, and they're like, "We figured out the game," and it's like, dude, do you not even know what Wi-Fi is? Like, but that's what I mean is, so like whenever anyone ever has the audacity to think that they've had it figured out, they don't have it figured out. And not only that, another thing you have to remember is when you steal an election, you are at your weakest point.
Yes.
And your enemy is at their strongest point. Because why else would you have to steal it?
Exactly right.
So, and not only that, though, you don't want anyone to come to that conclusion. So what are you going to do? You're going to demoralize them. You're going to have people thinking they've figured it out. They've stolen the election. It can't be beaten anymore.
Right. There'll never be a Republican president again.
Exactly. You want them to think you can't possibly do anything about it. The reality is that they're weaker than they've ever been, and people are seeing that, and they're seeing it's becoming more and more apparent in everyday life because it's bleeding into every other aspect. You're like, why can't Elon buy Twitter? And they're like, well, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is stepping in, and you have people going, yeah, what? So, you have all these liberals who are going, it's not like some other billionaire stepped in and was like, Elon Musk is bad. You're going, hey, the Kingdom of Saud and BlackRock of wait, what are we fucking cheering for? Like, but you know what I mean? It's like
I do.
You're like, what are we actually? It's like you guys are against the electric car space rocket man who just a month ago is a hero for providing space-based internet to Ukraine, and we're against him because King Talaweed said you're having the cognitive dissonance. It's starting to buckle under its own weight, and you still have some people who are like, no, it can work. And it's I don't, and again, maybe I'm just being optimistic. I think the system is rotting, but the system will never broadcast that it's losing. You have to remember that. I mean, Hitler gave out the Nero decree in like the final days of his life, up until the
and why would it be called the Nero decree? For the exact same reason.
Yeah, his generals were giving him false reports because they didn't want to be kicked out of the Führer bunker. They, up until the very end, they still thought they had it. They still thought they had some Wunderweapons that they were going to win the whole thing with. And it wasn't until the Soviet tanks were rolling through the rubble and they heard the bang from the, Hitler and Eva Braun, that all of a sudden they went, oh, it's over. There was no one was. You have to remember that years before the war was over, the top rocket scientist, Rudolph, Werner von Braun, and then you have the chemist Otto Ambros. You had the doctors, Kurt Bloma. They were all stashing away blueprints of not just rockets but everything they were working on, because they knew they needed bargaining chips for eventually when the Soviets and or the Americans came in. Because otherwise, they knew damn well they were going to be hung for what they did with the concentration camps. But they had bargaining chips, very intelligent.
Oh yes.
But they were hiding these things in the mountains and in hills as early as 1942, 1943.
Wow.
So Hitler, Operation Paperclip by Annie Jacobson. It's fantastic. Hitler's top guys, the true believers, they knew that the Reich was most likely going to go down 36 months before it did. So you got to remember that. The Reich never put out press releases that said, hey, we think this thing's over. No, up until the final moments of his life, which actually tomorrow is his death. Well, is his death anniversary. I didn't even realize that, 420. But up until the very last moment, we had to go in there and we're like, do they have wonder weapons? We don't know. And then once it's over and it's hindsight and it's 80 years later, we can dig through the history and we go, oh, this thing was rotting 3 years before, but you didn't know. In hindsight, we can look at Imperial Japan and we realized how angry the people were when the emperor would ride around in his Rolls Royce. But at the time, it seemed like this immovable force that we were going to have to use 1 million lives on. And we eventually had to drop 2 nukes on. And then in hindsight, we go, oh, this thing was broken. It's never until we look back on it that you realize the thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
But
part of my,
I'll wrap that up. The point of this is we'll never know until decades from now. We'll look back and we'll be like, do you remember when we thought that the 2020 election signified the end of America? Like, little did we know, X, Y, and Z. Right now, it seems like a monolith. They can smash anything on social media that they want. They can impose mandates. They can fucking take an election. They can shut down the Supreme Court. They can do, oh my God, the boogeyman. History shows us this isn't optimism. This is based in history. History shows us the grand wall of the Soviet Union. And then in 1991, it just falls. And then we look in the history, we go, oh, that thing was crumbling for decades. But they're never gonna, the thing that's dying, it's the exact opposite of the Titanic. It doesn't send out an SOS. All of a sudden, it just goes bloop, and it goes underwater, and you go, where'd it go?
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry for that rant. But that's
no. You rant good. And so I got to give you both a compliment and a question/recommendation.
All right.
All right. I already told you I was born in 1960. Yeah. So, I'm not a young guy. But for an old guy, I'm kind of young-ish. And I'm usually the guy with a little bit more effervescence and optimism in the room than most other people my age. And so I've been hearing for decades now, we need the fresh insight of the young people. I'm going, no, I'll give you my fresh insight. I don't need no young. Right now, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling like you do have a young man's optimism, that I'm in risk of growing old and past and cynical as I age, and that I like, oh, damn, I really am getting old. I need what this guy has to say. So that's a huge compliment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Second is the question/recommendation. I believe in the tremendous power of the written word, as opposed to this wonderful conversation we're having, which I hope as many people enjoy as possible. But when you put something down in documented form, it's got a kind of stickiness to it.
Yeah.
And so I do believe, our book here, et cetera, the written analysis that I sent in 2016 and that sort of thing. And I have not read an optimistic analysis at all, like what you've given us today in this conversation, let alone with the genius of your ideas and the solidity of your historical reasoning. I haven't seen anything like that. So my question/recommendation, do you write? Do you ever post your analysis in written form? And if not, man, I want to read your analysis. You're an analyst.
I've always loved writing, but I've found that the act of putting it from my mind to paper, there's a bottlenecking effect.
Mm-hmm.
I like it a lot more. When this podcast started, I didn't know if we were going to talk about politics or if we were going to talk. I truly had no idea. So I find it's better for me to just run the camera, and capture it when it gets captured.
All right. Well, now I'm going to push you a little because, recommendation. Now I'm going to push you. This is not an either or thing. It's a both and. Not an either or. And as fabulous as this interactive conversation is, and I've loved every minute of it, and I will remember this. I will remember this encounter. You have really helped me more than you can know. You have really helped me. And I believe that there are many people in my shoes that if they're watching this, they're going to have been helped by your analysis. I really mean that. So you've got that. You're not going to lose it. And it's not an either or proposition. There are times when you need to go away and, to use the old phrase, sharpen your pencil, which means sharpen your thinking, right? And get it down on paper. And that's going to be ugly. By the way, I started writing pretty much every day in my professional life. I'm a business coach professionally back in the year 2000. So it's, where I'm at now is 22 years later of pretty much writing every single day. And I don't think people started actually liking anything that I wrote until around 2009. And then, bit by bit, more and more. And then the thing that has improved my writing more than anything else has been Twitter. So in 2018, because of my work in connection to General Flynn, got involved in something we created, a social media movement called Free Flynn Now or Pardon Flynn Now. And we went back and forth between that, and Pardon Flynn Now is where we ended up laying down our whole endeavor. In fact, and there is a pardonflynnnow.com. You can go check it out. All of my analyses are there. And I did the historical analysis to find how the pardon could work constitutionally. And I found it to be, and I don't know if you'll find this interesting or not, a gap in our constitutional structure, because the power of pardon is one of the greatest and most vast of the entire presidential toolbox of instruments, and yet it's the one with the least amount of thought, analysis, and writing in the Constitution. And what I believe they did wrong, and I really believe it was just an oversight, because they just they had so little time, they'd done so much, etc., is that they didn't put a pardon of innocence in. And so the entire basis of now it's not limited to this. They don't say somebody must be guilty in order to be pardoned. They just assume that. It's assumptive right in the structure. Like, why would you pardon somebody who wasn't guilty? And why would you pardon an innocent person? And my answer, I'm going yo, you got a corrupt judicial system over here. You got corrupt judges, corrupt system in corrupt prosecution. Oh my God, prosecution corrupt out the wazoo. And if the president is not allowed to be an executive stop on that, you've got justice run amok, and it's not going to get corrected. And so we put forward, I say we, there's an amazing gal. Maybe we should make the introduction between you and Tamara Lee. She's a very close and dear friend. And she and I and my wife, Kate, and some other people were behind this movement. And we put together the analysis. And then when President Trump generated the pardon for General Flynn, the phrase, and it was Tamara who came up with the phrase pardon of innocence. She's the one who came up with that. He used that exact phrase in the pardon. It's first and only time so far in American history that phrase, pardon of innocence, is in a presidential pardon. Never been done before. And so I don't know what will happen into the future, but if we grab hold of that, I think we can correct some of what's so wrong in the imbalance of justice and its application in our society thereby. How did I get onto that? There was a reason. Writing. I did all of this in writing.
Okay.
And so my in 2018 is when I got started. I had a Twitter account going back to 2009. I didn't do anything with it. I didn't like Twitter. Twitter was not appealing to me at all. So I had this like, ooh, do I have to even look? Nah, I'm not gonna. But in 2018, I saw it. And so Tamara, again, was my teacher because she was incredibly powerful on Twitter and had been involved back in 2016 when the social media movement at Twitter was so much more powerful in helping get President Trump elected than people have remembered. Now, the big tech people know that, they know that and corrected against it in 2020, as we've discussed. But at any rate, so in 2018, I got involved and I started writing these things called threads. I don't know if you're much of a Twitter person or if you follow them.
I'm like,
do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm slowly like within the last couple of months, I'm slowly figuring out Twitter.
Yeah. So what you do, I mean, if you want to be a thread writer, which I became, I'll brag, I think I'm pretty good at it. At any rate, you post you put your little comments in, whatever the number of characters are, you post that, and then you hit reply to your own tweet.
Yeah, and it's just
and what I do with mine is I number them. So it's lots of people do it. So one, and parent, and then my thoughts, two, blah blah blah, on down, and then I always say at the bottom, all right, today's analysis ends at number 25 or whatever it is. And so I started doing that, and obviously it evolved over time, but that I believe has refined my writing, because writing in paragraph chunks, like small paragraph chunks, where I've got to keep it to one thought in that space, and then I've got to make my chain link on all of the logical connections in the flow from one thought to the next. It's got to be there. Now, there's a lot of times that I really don't do it right, but it's always a learning process. That I believe has done more to improve my writing than any other thing since I got started in 2000.
Yeah.
And what I'm telling you is, if I saw that you posted a thread, I would read that thread.
Maybe I should get like a program to start auto transcribing my podcasts.
I don't know if that'll work or not. But
no, it wouldn't at all.
I wasn't impressed by the idea, but
no. It's the laziest out ever. Yeah.
No, but seriously, your optimism. I mean, I would have you call it Tommy's 2022 optimism.
But to me, it's not even. I mean, I have to be optimistic, just like personally, like just suffering, like just fighting depression. It's just like I have to. I don't have a choice.
I already knew that.
Yeah.
Tommy, I knew that.
Yeah, but for me, it kind of comes down to this: is like last probably about a year ago, I interviewed Bing West, who's the biographer for General Mattis. He's like he's friends with him. I think he worked in the Reagan administration.
Sure.
He wrote Mattis's book, Call Sign Chaos, and in it, General Mattis has two quotes that really kind of stuck with me. And it's number one, they're not at all related in the book, but to me they seemed related. It's if you have not read hundreds of fiction books, you are functionally illiterate. Nonfiction historical. Wow. Sorry, if you have not read hundreds of nonfiction historical books, you're functionally illiterate. And then the other quote was, intuition is subconscious pattern recognition, nothing more, nothing less. So to me, I looked at it as this, like, like, why do we use CAPTCHAs? Select all the squares that have a street light in it, to find out whether or not you're whatever. They don't just use those and throw them away. They also capture all of that data, and they use that to train AI. So AI can recognize images. And the more tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of millions of sample sets it has, the more accurate, the more accurate the AI becomes. So
yes,
my logic was this. So your brain is intelligence and you're using pattern recognition, right? Some of it's conscious. I recognize you. I interviewed you versus like, where have I seen that face before? Just that gut feeling. And what Mattis says, and I would imagine a guy that's risen to his stature, it's probably based in, he's a warfare expert, that intuition isn't just some ethereal thing. What it is it's an estimated guess from the unconscious parts of your brain. So how do you improve those unconscious guesses? You want to feed as much data into that machine as you can. So yes. I had kind of started in like 2020. I'd be interviewing authors and I'd listen to audiobooks. But after I heard those two quotes, probably about last April, I was like, I need to just start plugging in as much nonfiction data as I can.
Okay.
So every day I wake up, I go to the gym, come back and get ready for the podcast. There's about a 2-hour window, and I listen to audiobooks on 2.5 speed, and I get in as much as I can. And every week it's my goal that I knock out a nonfiction historical book. So within the last year, I've knocked out, it's been about a year, a little over like 52 historical. It's mostly like Cold War or World War II to now. But the point is when you have all of this data now,
I can feel that in what you've been telling me today.
You can start looking at it, and all of a sudden the optimism isn't just wishful optimism. You start to go, wait, no. This isn't even really optimism. Now I'm just looking historically. This is what happened. And it's
bravo.
So that's where it comes from. And then there is kind of like, and then there's your own tint. Well, you could, if you're a negative person, you could probably find the negative patterns as well. Sure. Censorship ultimately leads to genocide. Well, there's another one. That's not, that's not as good. But so my optimism really for the most, even if I hated Trump and I wanted the election to be stolen, I'd be sitting here going, I don't think it's going to work anymore because this is what happened. So like, it's not, I guess my point is like,
yeah,
I don't want because you said it helped you. I don't want you to in an hour or two go, oh, maybe I got swept up in optimism.
Oh, no.
No. Everything I'm saying is
I've read as many books as Mattis has read.
Yeah. It's everything is based. And I never started reading really or listening to audiobooks until like a year or two ago. I never cared. And now I just plow through every book right now I'm listening to a book on the X-15, the rocket plane from the awesome. And there are little notes in there that you find, there are little lessons you find. Yes. So my point is like I am optimistic, and it's based in what I believe to be factual evidence that there's awesome. Reason to be optimistic. Who knows?
I got something to hit you with. You're gonna love this.
Sure.
At Twitter, I just opened up a month ago a brand new account under @IamTheGraphman. And what it is, and it's called, and I put a hashtag to it, hashtag Sun Tzu for Business. I've now posted 12 threads there, but I've also recorded them at SoundCloud. So at SoundCloud, I've got Sun Tzu for Business. And you can go and so they're just like 20 or 25 point, they're between 7 and 9 minutes are each of these meditations I've done. And if you have not been introduced to Sun Tzu yet, you're going to fall in love. And if you have been introduced but didn't fall in love then, you'll fall in love now.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Sun Tzu is my guy.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, now after 1 month of this, I'm projecting it outward. Looks like it's about a 5-year project. Yeah. It's going to take me about. So what I do is I write up a commentary for each verse. There's a total of 385 verses, and I will write a commentary for every single one of those.
Hell yeah. What I was going to say is to kind of go on what we were saying about historical things. Another thing I look at, and this is a little more wishful optimism.
Okay.
But I do look at, it's okay to dream. I do look at things like the book Raven Rock, all about the nuclear bunkers from FDR through Obama, written by Garrett Graff. I've interviewed him twice. It was the best-selling book on Audible in 2019, I think. Wow. Absolutely insane. It's all about the continuity of government. It's about the second in command through like the 50th in command. It's about the preparation.
What's the name of the book again?
Raven Rock. That's one
Raven. Oh, Raven Rock. Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Site R. It's all about NORAD, the Greenbrier Hotel. It's all about all the hundreds of bunkers. I mean, really from even back to Eisenhower, you realize how fleshed out this thing was. And then, I mean, boggles your mind at the levels of intricacy it has. In the 50s,
the interstate highway system was designed for its benefit.
Oh yeah, that's why every X number of miles, there has to be a 5-mile strip that's straight, because they could clear the median and turn it into a makeshift runway, so that if there's an invading force, we could just keep backing up and we could sabotage our own airfields and then just use the Eisenhower interstate system as
fabulous. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Wow. It'll blow your mind. I mean,
oh yeah, I'm going to read it. You sold that book.
It's my favorite nonfiction book. It'll melt your brain at the level of intricacies of things they had. I mean, they had these 25,000 foot long wires that they could spool out the back of a plane, and then the plane would do mile wide circumference circling patterns, and it would turn the 25,000 foot wire into a coil, and that coil could actually act as a makeshift antenna deployable anywhere in the sky that they could then use to broadcast extremely low frequency signals to United States submarines, so that X days into a thermonuclear exchange, even if all of mainland America was wiped out, we could put this plane anywhere in the sky. And that was just one. I forget what it was called.
Wow.
But the point is there are so many, it'll melt your brain at the number of contingency plans they had for everything.
Awesome.
That when I look at when this was developed in the Cold War, everything was taken into account, including sabotage. I can't help but think, I mean, if you're looking at America tactically, you can't, it's in between two oceans, biggest military in the history of man. You can't take it down. Well, what would you logically have to do? You'd have to destroy it from within, right? And what's the weakest point? The weakest point is you don't need to take on every tank. You just got to steal an election. Then you take control, and then you can top down demolish it, right?
Yeah, here's a book you got to add to your list. Unrestricted Warfare.
Oh, yeah.
You know this one?
Yeah.
Have you read it?
Yeah, by the two Chinese generals?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the child of Sun Tzu's Art of War from 2,300 years previously.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And Brigadier General Robert Spalding's book, Stealth War, had him on in 2020. It's kind of the use of it, right? But the point of what I'm saying about like Raven Rock is, if you can't take down this thing, the weakest spot would be, I mean, Khrushchev said that, communism the flag will raise in the United States, but be raised by its own citizens. My logic is this: if me, a 31-year-old who's just read a couple or listened to a couple audiobooks, can look at the continuity of government structure and realize that they prepared for everything, I can't help but think, and this is where the wishful comes in, that some paranoid general, and they were fucking paranoid, in the last 7 decades probably floated the idea, hey, what if a small group of people, instead of taking us on militarily, just captured the media and then stole an election? Because then they could just break down.
They have done this work. That's the bad news. Well, and I know them,
Okay. Well, that's I can't help.
They have, and it's not encouraging.
Yeah. Well,
there was in November of 2020, General Thomas McInerney put forward this entire military response that had been analyzed all the way down to the nth degree, exactly like you're saying, to how to cure a stolen election. And what we discovered, by the way, I was immediately all for it myself, but Trump didn't do it. And in the end, I hated this, but I ended up agreeing with Trump that to have done it the cure would have been worse than the disease. Well, because you would have lost half the nation completely to civil war. Maybe, I don't know, forever. But I mean, if they felt that the military was the manner in which the election was cured, then there's no healing that. So that the cure is worse than the disease.
It's the most delicate operation, because if the military steps in and says this has been a stolen election, we have all this advanced machinery and computers that analyze it, half the nation is going to go, well, that's Trump's military.
Exactly.
And if the military came in and said, we're going to put 50,000 armed guards around the Capitol, they're going to go, that's Biden's military. But that doesn't mean that the data doesn't exist. So
it does exist. No, it does. It absolutely does exist.
My hope is there is some Curtis LeMay motherfucker still somewhere deep in NORAD that's like, I'm going to bring justice.
I don't know. I don't know that it even matters any longer, because we are now where trust is the only currency. And, facts facts have been essentially obliterated. So we're in a fact-free world where, I say it's a fact, you say that's a fake fact. And there's no debate. They've wiped out the logical interflow from one fact to the next fact. There's no logical connector there any longer. So it all comes down to emotion and trust. And how do we cure against that? Now I'm going to be getting all depressed again in a minute here. But no, I am telling you, there is the military that has done this work, and it was brought forward in a very aggressive manner. I personally I wasn't like directly involved, but I was following it, and I was with my analysis that I was publishing, supporting it. And then we saw Trump made it. I was furious. I was furious at Trump for not doing it because I felt it had to be done. But then I'm looking at it and I'm going, so January 20 comes and he doesn't give the keys to the Oval Office because he's got a general standing there next to him.
Yeah, it's
the
thing is it might have the red pill might be that it might have been the right move. They might have looked at it and go, we know for a fact it's stolen. We know for a fact that this happened.
You might be right. You might be right.
They might look at it and go, if our job is to protect the republic, and if this might result in civil war,
there you go.
Maybe you transfer that doesn't mean that there aren't still machinations behind the scenes to maybe make sure it doesn't happen again. I think
that's where the optimism comes back in.
I think ultimately it comes down to this. They probably looked at 2020 and said, we cannot undo it. The nation is so divided. This will result.
You should try to get McInerney on your show.
I should. I think they might have looked at 2020 and said, if we try to fix this, it will result in civil war. We don't exist in a vacuum. China and Russia will then make moves on our bases around the world. Okay, we let this go through. Okay, maybe they examine Biden. They go, okay, he's not actually a Chinese asset. He's just a corrupt politician. Let's just make sure quietly in the background that this can't ever happen again.
I like the way you think, man.
It might be.
You gotta invite me on your show again so I can get another pump up of optimism.
A little hopium dose. I'll
there you go.
I'll deliver it. I think that's probably. I'm just thinking aloud. I think that's probably the most logical thing. I think they probably realized.
You're the first time I've heard that, and I certainly never had those thoughts cross my mind. Those are your thoughts, not mine.
Yeah, I think that might be.
That's brilliant.
You're looking at 2020. You're looking at BLM riots. You're looking at COVID. They're going, it was stolen. It sucks. We took one on the chin.
But we got to get through this, and there's got to be another side.
If this stolen president starts trying to dismantle the military, then we'll step in. But at the most part, let them just be a fucking politician. They're going to pass bills. And in the background, you work to make sure that this can't happen again. That's what I think.
That's the most hopeful thing I've heard since 2020.
And it sucks. And there's probably a lot of generals going, this is bullshit. But it's like when LeMay, fucking Curtis LeMay, when he headed up Operation Paperclip and said, we're going to bring these Nazis back. And all these other generals went, you're going to do what? And he said that the bigger war is against the Soviets. Hey, man, if your job is to protect the Republic and not hold a grudge against Nazis, then you will bring back Werner von Braun and Arthur Rudolph if it means you can have missiles to fight the Soviets. It's amputation. It sucks, but if you want to survive, you got to lose hey, man, that might have been the hardest decision. Is you have to let this stolen election go through.
I give Trump credit for that.
Yeah,
because Trump had the reach and the power. He absolutely could have protected his election. And I consider it, and this is part of my depression, the greatest landslide victory in American history. So they didn't just steal an election. In my opinion, I believe they stole the greatest landslide re-election ever. Yeah. And that knocked me silly until today. But you have now helped me. I am now your convert.
Hell yeah. Join my cult.
Okay. I just don't drink Kool-Aid. Okay, no Kool-Aid.
No Kool-Aid. It's fine. But I think you're right. It was probably that.
Yeah.
And it sucks because the bad guys aren't going to be punished. There's going to be no day where
that's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
But it may be also maybe not as hopeless as we think it is.
All right. So I don't know when I'm going to do it. I don't do my threads on a daily basis anymore. I don't even do them weekly. But in my next thread, my political one, not my Sun Tzu ones, my Sun Tzu, that's all for business. I don't allow politics over there.
Oh yeah.
I've learned no politics. But in my political life, I am going to present Tommy Carrigan's optimism. I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to try to be you. I'm not going to try to replicate your entire argument. That's for you to do. But I will try to take what you've given me, let it sink in, and then when it's ready to come back out, I will write up a thread and I'll hit you up at Twitter so you can follow the thread.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. And
I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll put your Twitter in the description. I'll put your book in the description. I'll email you this episode when it's up. It'll be up
cool.
Probably like an hour.
Cool. Do that. And you should hunt down General McInerney. I bet he's available because, nobody's talking about this stuff right now the way it was back then. And he was such a strong advocate for the military solution that he took a huge hit reputationally and whatnot. He may not even want to talk about this stuff anymore. I don't know. But my bet is you could get him. And if you did, it'd be a great show. And then the other one is my friend Tamara Lee. And going all the way back to 2016 and the social media component of the movement that swept Trump into office, and then everything that we've done since, and that she's done, I think you'd find her a fascinating guest. So you should, I'll make that introduction if you want.
I would love to. And
I'll do that as soon as we're done here then.
All right. And then hold on, let me stop recording.
Okay.
But